Okay, this is the last little set of problems, starting with number 21. You've got the triangle has vertices shown. What's the area of the triangle? There are a couple of ways to do this. The thing that is a little bit hard, well, there are two ways to do it. One of them is take a look at this slope right here. From 0 to 4, always look at your y's first. You went up 4. And from negative 3 to 1, that's up 4, which means this has a slope right here. And let me get rid of these lines, which means the line that connects A and C has a slope of 1. Okay, M equals 1. All right, so now look at these two. Connect your y's. From 1 to 4, you went up 3. From 4 to 1, you went down 3, which means this has a slope of negative 1. Remember that opposite reciprocals, okay, is how you can tell that they're perpendicular, which means these are in fact perpendicular, okay? And you can do the distance formula of this. That makes one of these a height and one of these a base, and it doesn't matter which one is which. So distance is equal to, notice that how the little distance formula looks. I'm going to make this one purple. The distance formula looks like the graduation owl from how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop commercials. And so if you draw him with his little graduation hat with his tassel and his big glasses and his half-closed disinterested eyes, then you have the distance formula. His beak's in the middle, so just something to note. All right, I'm going to first do the distance of this pink line right here, which would be the length of it. And so that would be 4 minus 1. So I did the y's first, 1 minus 4. That would be the square root of 3 squared plus negative 3 squared, which both of those are 9. So that'd be 9 plus 9 is 18. Okay, and then the purple one, I'm going to do 4 minus 0 first and 1 minus negative 3. Minus the negative is positive. 4 minus 0 squared is 4 squared, plus 1 plus 3 is also 4 squared, which means this is 16 plus 16, which is the square root of 32. Okay. All right, so basically, instead of D now, remember that pink I said was the base, and so we'll just call this the base. And instead of D for the purple, because distance does mean length, that's how far it is, that's going to be the height. And remember, for a triangle, the area is equal to 1/2 times the base times the height. So that would be 1/2 times the square root of 18 times the square root of 32. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead. This would mean 1/2 times the square root of 18 times 32. When they're radicals, you can just add them up together. I'm going to do this, though. 18 is 2 times 9 times 32 is 2 times 16. That would be 1/2 times 4 times 9 times 16. Those are all perfect squares. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 9 is 3. And the square root of 16 is 4. Half of 2 is 1. So 1 times 3 times 4 is 12 units. So that would be B. Okay? Now, that's the difficult way to do it. The easy way to do it, if you just are a little confused, is count blocks. Okay, and if I count, I'm going to count whole blocks first. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Color those in. That's about all the half blocks, and so I would say those make about 7, 8. That one and that one is probably 9, 10. And then there are 2 that are more than half, 11 and a half, 12, something like that. You can count blocks and you would end up with about 12 too. So either way would work. I think the quicker way is probably counting blocks. All right, number 22, given the points 2, -1, and -9, 6, what are the coordinates of the point on the directed line segment that partitions PQ in the ratio of 3 to 2? Okay, this is I really like these problems, but I can understand why it would seem like they're a little bit difficult. But let's go ahead and look at this. I'm going to put some grid paper in the background, though. Even though it's teensy tiny grid paper, it's all I have right now. But basically, you've got these points, okay? All right. And I'm going to make my little axes. All right. And it wants to know you've got a point at 2, -1, so that's about right there. P is at about 2, -1. And you've got a point at -9, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. -9, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's like right here. That's Q. Okay? And it's asking what are the coordinates of the point that partitions it in a 3:2 ratio. 3:2 means if you've got a length here, you would go 1, 2, 3, and you would still have 2 more to go. And I didn't do that right. Hold on. 3:2. Going back to that. Basically means that it's 3 segments of equal length compared to 2 segments of equal length, okay? Directed line segment means that the first number comes first. You are definitely going from P to Q. And you want it divided, really, if it's a 3:2, it's divided into 5, okay? So basically what you do on this type problem, okay, if it's a 3:2, so it's going to be, if I had to guess, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to be somewhere around, like, right in here. My units aren't very good. I do know that it's a negative negative, but they all are too, so that really doesn't matter. Here's what you do. This distance right here, the red distance, that's a vertical distance, okay? You're starting at -1, and you're ending at, let's see, -6, okay? It wants this in a 3:2 ratio, which means that, hold on, this distance is 5, and you went down 5, okay? A ratio of 3:2 means that you are going to go 3 out of the 5 hash marks that you would have to make, okay? So basically, you would have to go this distance, 3/5 of -5 from -1. Okay, so 3/5, 5 and a -5 is -1, -3 from -1, so down 3 from that point. Okay, down 3 from -1 means that the y value, and I did the y values first, ends up at -4. Okay, so -3 minus 1 equals -4. So, well, hey, there it is. I'll go ahead and work through the other one just in case, because you never know. Sometimes people start with the y's. Keep in mind, you're starting at P, okay, and you're going to Q. So you're going in this direction horizontally, all right, which means you're starting at the x value of 2, and you end at the x value of -9, okay? That means you went back 7, all right, total. But remember that it wants you to go 3 of the 5 hash marks to the left, okay? So you've got to multiply that by 3. 3 of the 5 is 3/5 of that distance, and so that would be -21 over 5. Okay, but that's from the starting x, which is 2. Okay, so if you start at 2, you're going to go back 21/5. Keep in mind that 2 is 10/5. It's the same thing. And so that would be -11/5. And so it's not there. Hold on, let's look at it again and make absolutely certain. You ever get to a problem like this and go, oh my gosh. Let's look at it again, okay? You started, because you started at P, you start at 2. Okay? You end at -9 for the x, which means you, oh, da 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 da, I didn't go back 7. If you start at 2 on the number line and end at -9, you went back 11. Okay? Remember that you are doing 3/5 of the distance, so 3/5 of this distance, okay, would be -33/5 from your starting point, which is 2. So that would be you start at 2, and then you go back 33/5. 2 is still 10/5. which is negative 23 fifths. If I had time, I would edit that out, my mistake, but you know, I don't have time, number one. And number two, maybe it's important for you to understand that even people who have math degrees make simple errors. And if you don't find your answer, don't be frustrated. Just start over. The fact that I found the negative 4 meant that I started at the x to make sure that, because I felt like that was probably where my error was, and then I found it. So stay cool, stay calm, it's okay. Number 23. A certain population of bacteria has an average growth of 0.02 bacteria per hour. The formula for the bacteria is da, 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 where P sub 0 is the original population and T is the time in hours. Okay. It says if you begin with 200 bacteria, that is directly saying P sub 0 because begin with is the original population. So P sub 0, which is located right there, we're going to put 200 right there. And then this big number. Okay, 0.02. All right, and then it says after T is time, make sure it's, yes, in hours. So time in hours is 100 hours. All right, all this means is that you're going to put this into your calculator. Let me get my calculator because all right, view scientific. Okay, you will have a calculator, but 200, nope, nope, nope. Hold on. It thought I was writing. 200 times, open parentheses, 2, and this is where it's going to be pretty important to make sure it's 2.71828, close parentheses. This one has this button. To the power of, open parentheses, 0.02 times 100 equals. And it gives me 1477.8, which is very, very close to 1478, and so that's the answer C for number 23. Okay, moving to the next problem. We're almost done. 24, population of squirrels doubles every year. Initially, there were 5 squirrels. Okay, you started with 5 squirrels. The biologist studies with this equation. The graph is shown. What's the range of the function? Well, here's the thing. This, okay, is when you started. When you started counting. Okay, it isn't the beginning of time. Okay, so is it possible that there were 0 squirrels one day? Yeah, it's possible, but see, here's the thing. It doesn't care about that. It says since you started counting. Initially, it's saying there were 5 squirrels, which means that's where you start. Okay, so you don't even consider the possibility that maybe there were some time ago there were not squirrels. You start at 5, so you start right here. Okay, this is time, and vertically, this is the number of squirrels in the squirrel population. All right, and they're doubling every year. It's wanting to know what's the range. The range is up and down, so the range is the outcome or the number of squirrels. All right, so here's the thing, just look at it. What was the starting number and where are the squirrels going, assuming that they're gonna increase without bound. It's not any real number because you're not going to have a negative number of squirrels, okay, and you never had less than 5, okay, since you started counting, so you don't even consider that side of the axis. Any whole number greater than 0? No, because you never counted fewer than 5. All right, C and D, any whole number greater than 5 or any whole number greater than or equal to 5. It was at one point equal because that's when you counted, so it's not C, the answer is D. Next, on this coordinate grid, the library is located at point T. Would have been nice if they'd called it point L, but never mind. Okay, the music store is located at point S, and the pet store is located at point R. Okay, each grid represents 1 mile. How much farther, the nearest tenth of a mile, is the music store from the library than it is from the pet store? Okay, it's asking you to compare this right here, that distance, how far is it, with this. Okay, the distance from the pet store to the music area, you start at 2, you end at 10, and that's in miles. So that would be 8 miles. Now, I can see this is a right angle because it's right on the grid, so I'm going to do something that you might not normally do. I'm going to look here, which is at 5 to 13. From 5 to 13, I went up, let's see, that was 8 also. Um, Now, distance formula, remember the owl, would work fine. Okay, you could plug in those numbers and find it. However, once I've done what I just did right here, which is I know that this is 8 and this is 8, I can go 8 squared plus 8 squared is equal to the other distance squared. So 64 plus 64 is equal to the distance squared, which means 128 equals distance squared, which means distance is equal to the square root of, because you would have to square root both sides, 128. Now, in my calculator, clear, no, hold on, I have to go back to the cursor whenever I use the calculator. Okay, 128, do I have a square root? Alright, this is what I'm going to do. To the power of 0.5, because I know that 1/2 is square rooting, and that's at about 11.3. Okay, so D is about equal to 11.3. Alright, so the question, and this is where you've got to be really careful, is to the nearest tenth of a mile, how much farther is the yellow line from the blue? No, so let me say that again. How much farther is the music store to the library than the music store is to the pet store? So yeah, it doesn't matter anyway because they're both 8. But 11.3 minus 8.0. No, they're looking to see. You can see 11.3 is in the answers. Don't get hasty. Don't go too fast and go, look, I found an answer that I got, and keep moving. Read the question, okay? Question is asking how much farther, which means you've got to subtract. It's 3.5 miles, or 3.3 miles farther than it is to go in the other way, okay? Last one. The vertices of E, F, G, H have that. Which describes that, or what is this, basically? Um, Probably what I would want to do is put this on some graph paper, but let me see if I can find format. What I'm going to do is put, no, put a grid background in here and kind of try to draw it there. It helps to see, even if what you're seeing isn't perfect. Okay, so it gives you these coordinates, and they're actually kind of nice coordinates. They're not like fractional or anything like that. So you've got 2, -2, which is right there. That's E. You've got 4, 3, which is right there. That's F. You've got -1, 5, which is G. And you have -3, 0, which is H. All right. Worst case scenario, and I'll go ahead and work out worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is you're going to do um, 4 of your slopes, and you'll do 4 distances, okay? It's really not that big a deal. Slope, let's see, E, all right, F is 4, 3. E is 2, -2. Just look at the y's first, excuse me. From -2 to 3, I went up 5. From 2 to 4, I went up 2. So this has a slope of 5/2. Okay, 5/2. Now let's do G, -1, 5. From G to F, look at the y's. From 3 to 5, I went up 2. From 4 to -1, I went down 5, -2/5. Okay, those are perpendicular because -2/5 and 5/2 are opposite reciprocals. So let's do the other one now. H is -3, 0. All right, from 0 to 5, I went up 5. From -3 to -1, I went up 2. This has a slope of 5/2, which means -2/5 and 5/2 are also opposite reciprocals, so those are perpendicular. And last, from H to E, if I start at 0 and go to -2, I go down 2. If I start at -3 and go to 2, I go up 5, which means this has a -2/5 slope, which means it's perpendicular to both of the other sides. So you do know you have 4 right angles. That does not make it a square. That makes it a rectangle. And what makes it a square is, in combination with that, you also have 4 congruent sides. And so that's where I'm going next. I do know that I'm going to need to count the sides, but really, let me tell you another thing you could do instead of doing the distance formula. Count how you got from one to another. In other words, if I go from G to F, I go down 2 and over 5. Okay? This one, and think about that as a right triangle. 2, 5. The distance formula is based on the right triangle. 2 squared plus 5 squared, which would be 4 plus 25, which means this is the square root of 29, or slightly bigger than 5. Okay? If I go from F to E, I go down 5 and back 2, which means that's a right triangle with a 2, 5 sides also, which means it has the square root of 29. Here from E to H, I go from, let's see, E is at -2, 0, so you're going to go back 5 and up. Is that right? Yeah. Back 5 and up 2, which means that's also a 2, 5 square root of 29 triangle. And then the same thing here, down 2 over 5. This is a square root of 29. If you did the distance formula, you'd get the same thing. All 3 sides, so 4 sides are all equal to the square root of 29, okay? Which means all 4 right angles, all 4 sides, it is definitely a square, okay? And ta-da, that's it. We're done with the review. Good luck on your test. Study hard. Surely do hope that we all do better this